So I turn, draw my pistol, and it is silent. And I'm like looking, I'm like stepping a little bit to each side, trying to figure out what in the hell is going on. And all of a sudden, it sounds like you loaded up an 18-wheeler and let it loose down the side of the mountain. Branches breaking, crashing, thundering noises, which were the footsteps, I assume now. Just boom, 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 down the side of the mountain. But just paving a trail, man. I've never heard anything like that.
This is Bigfoot Crossroads. My name's Matt, and I am joined by Micah. Micah reached out to me recently with some interesting experiences he's had in Idaho. And him and I both, but especially him, are hoping that maybe somebody listening will be able to shed a little light on his experience and maybe give him something to relate to, which is something a lot of us are looking for whenever we witness these things. Micah, thanks for joining me on Bigfoot Crossroads.
Hey, Matt, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. So take us through that day, what you were doing and everything that happened.
Okay, so first encounter was in 2014. It was either March or April. 2015, March or April 2015. I was a senior in high school, had a buddy and I that we would go out and we would go coyote hunting near the area I still currently live in, not far from the Boise area. And we would go out coyote hunting just out on the local ranches. We had a couple guys that would give us $50 a coyote for two 18-year-old kids for an evening. It was a great pastime and a way to have a little cash.
Yeah.
But we both grew up in Valley County, which is about 2 hours north of where I live now, Valley County, Idaho. I'm not going to use his name. I haven't talked to him about this. I don't have permission to use his name.
Oh, no problem.
Anyways, we were from a similar area growing up, and so we got permission from our parents. Our homework was all done. We didn't have tests or anything, so we got to skip school on a Friday and skip town and go wolf hunting for a weekend. In Idaho, they had just recently, in 5 years before that, I think, late 2000s, they had just reintroduced wolves in the area in Idaho, and they run rampant. Especially those first few years, it was nuts. Fish and Game didn't want to say they existed. People were having cows killed. Sheep were being killed. The elk herds, I grew up in a really small town. The elk used to be on the golf course in town at night.
Oh, wow.
And once they reintroduced the wolves, they were just gone. Done. They were not anywhere they were normally seen once they reintroduced wolves.
Wow.
And I'm sure they worked over the elk herds pretty good. Anyway, so we went up to just outside of a town called McCall, Idaho. He had this old Jeep, this old two-door Jeep, and we called it the War Wagon because that thing would go anywhere. It was awesome. And we were kind of cruising these little mountain back roads, and there was a sheep herder in the area. They've been having problems with wolves for a long time, apparently, and my buddy knew him. The sheep herder had talked to my buddy's dad 2 weeks before we went up for this little hunting weekend and said that he'd lost 3 of his guard dogs to a single wolf that had been coming in and killing his sheep. I didn't connect all this until a couple of years later. But he said that one huge black wolf had come in and killed 3 of his guard dogs.
Wow.
For reference, that was a Great Pyrenees and 2 Anatolian Shepherds.
Jeez.
So these are not small dogs that are being killed.
No, no, not at all.
and something just destroyed those 3 dogs. So not only is he losing sheep, he's now lost his guard dogs, and this guy's not happy. This sheep herder. Anyways, so we are cruising these little back roads, and he had a spot where he had heard that there was wolves in this little valley a few weeks prior. So we stop and we hike. It's probably only a quarter-mile hike from this little road up to the top of the ridge where we can kind of see down into the valley. We come up over this ridge, and we sit there, and we're just kind of listening, getting used to the sounds around us. And my buddy sitting next to me, I see him slowly, like, sit upright. Like, if you were to sit bolt upright in slow motion, that's what he did. And he nudges me and says 370 right at the edge of the wood line. I'm like, okay. So he said 370 yards right at the edge of the clearing in front of us on the opposite side. It had come out not all the way across this little meadow, but it was about 3/4 of the way across, coming out of the wood line, and looked like it was crossing to the other side. It's on all fours. It is black as black can be, which I didn't think anything of it, again, because we had black wolves in the area. I don't know. I don't remember. I looked at one point, and there's a Canadian gray wolf, timber wolf hybrid that can be black. And the things are freaking huge. There's a picture of a guy up in a town called Grangeville, which is about four hours north from where we were. He's holding a wolf under the front legs. The guy's 6'2", by the way. He's holding a black wolf under its front legs, and the back feet are still touching the ground.
Wow.
Yeah, so they were big wolves. So in my mind, I'm thinking this is just one of these huge black wolves. Cool, we're going to get a shot on it. We're going to get to go home with a wolf. And something that we would do when we were coyote hunting is he had a 223 bolt action that his dad had a suppressor on, a fully legal. He had the documents, he had the tax stamps, everything. And that thing was a coyote killing machine. That gun was. But what we would do is usually he would take the first shot, and then if he missed, I was scoped on the same animal, and if he missed, I would do a follow-up shot, and we had a pretty good success rate with that. But this time we had decided to switch, and I was going to shoot first. I had an unsuppressed 223, and so my buddy ranges him, and he says, all right, he's at 374. That's not exact. I think it was 374 yards, because we'd been practicing shooting like 300 to 400 on coyotes recently, and we had pretty good success. So I'm like, all right. So I take my breaths, I'm on my little shooting stand, my tripod. I take my breath and I fire. I don't know if I missed or if the shot had no effect or what, but it didn't know we were there. It's just kind of at a slow, not quite a trot, but it's just moving at a pretty good little pace across this clearing, not in a hurry. And I don't know if I missed or if the shot had no effect, but this thing was gone before my buddy could take a follow-up shot. And it covered probably 70 yards in 2 seconds, 3 seconds.
Wow.
I mean, I don't even know how to describe how fast this thing moved. I've never seen anything like it in my life. It was unbelievably fast. And I kind of looked at my buddy, and I was like, that thing's gone already? And he goes, dude, I couldn't even keep it in the scope to track it for a follow-up. And he was a ridiculously good shot. And he couldn't do it. So we're like, all right, well, that was weird. And we just shot the unsuppressed rifle first. So we're going to go to a different spot, So we did. And we ended up going to like a completely different valley, like 4 miles away, and got a couple of coyotes and nothing crazy. But that kind of wraps up that encounter, except for the next day. We went back trying to see if, maybe we'll get lucky and this thing comes back through. And like I said in the email, there was a tree stump that this thing had walked in front of. I did not realize it at the time. I'm not a big dude. I'm only 5'9". But when I walked up to that stump, it's not really a stump. It was a cutoff tree. That tree cut was just below like my belly button area. There was daylight between that thing and the stump under its chest.
Jeez.
So, I mean, again, you're talking 3.5 feet, maybe 4 feet to the bottom of the stomach, which is like 4.5, 5 feet at the shoulder.
Yeah.
I don't know of any wolf that gets that big.
No.
I walked up to it and I'm kind of looking at the stump, and I turn and look at my buddy, and I can tell he's thinking the same thing. And I'm like, there was daylight between that and the stump, right? That wolf. And he goes, yeah, that's the biggest damn wolf I've ever seen. And that was the end of it, because we were like, well, it was just a big friggin' wolf, you know? Just a freaking big wolf. Like, I don't know of any species that gets that big.
I mean, I assume that whenever you fired, both of you had your scopes on it, right?
Yep, just like we did when we were coyote hunting.
I mean, did you see any physical reaction from being hit?
No, that's why I don't know if I missed or if the shot had no effect. You know, after listening to some podcasts, I've heard that these things are, you know, whatever you want to call it, whether it's bulletproof or the bullets just don't do anything. But I don't know. I mean, I've taken shots at really similar ranges on coyotes, which were a lot smaller than this thing, and I'd rolled them.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if I missed or if it just didn't do anything. But it was gone before my buddy could even figure it out and get a follow-up shot. And we, like I said, we would coyote hunt. We would both be scoped in. And as soon as we figured out if he missed or not, because usually he shot the suppressed rifle first, and if he missed, I would follow up on it. And we'd done it many times in whatever order and successfully. And it was gone, and I mean gone, before he could do anything.
Did everything about it seem normal? Like, did it look normal in appearance from what you could tell?
I was so excited to see a wolf that I didn't, shamefully, I didn't look super closely. But it didn't seem all that out of the normal. It was big. It was on all floors. It had a tail. It had wolf type ears. I mean, it looked like a massive black wolf.
And just solid black.
I mean, black as black can be. In my scope, it was blacker than the black of my crosshair.
Yeah, which is also something that I've heard witnesses mention before, is how dark of a black it was.
Yeah, that part's for real. I can tell you that much.
And then the speed that it left the area. I mean, typically the larger something is, the slower it is. You know what I mean? Man,
you would think so. I've never seen anything move the way this thing did. Not an animal, not a human. It was unbelievable. Like I said, it was 70 yards-ish. It was nuts.
You're an experienced coyote hunter at that point, and you've had the ability to, take double shots previously. You're used to the movements. You're used to the speed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what I tell people, over and over again. You were the one that was there and witnessed it and experienced everything. You would know better than anyone else.
If my friend hadn't been there, I would have thought I imagined it. That's how fast it was.
No noises or anything like that. Obviously, whenever you went back the next day, you didn't see any signs of blood or anything.
No signs of blood. I didn't really hear noises, but like I said, we were 375 yards away.
Yeah.
So I don't think, if there was noise that we could hear from that far, it would have been a hell of a racket. But no, there was no noise. There was no blood, nothing.
Do you happen to know if the property owner had any more problems after that?
The sheep herder was, his land where he ran his sheep was like I think a mile away as the crow flies. So we were close to the property, but we were actually on public land during that incident.
But you never heard anything from him afterwards?
No, because we graduated in May, and then I'm still friends with the guy, but I don't see him, the guy that I was with. I'm still friends with him, but we don't see each other super often.
Yeah.
So we just kind of, it was a big black wolf, and we missed, and that sucks, and that was that.
Dogman is not my field of expertise, I would say, but it's something that I have talked to people about, and I have talked to several people who have reported seeing what you're describing, a large black wolf, except supersized.
Yeah.
And you're probably the third or fourth person that I've talked to that has witnessed something like this. From all over the United States. So it's definitely something at this point. Yeah, I would definitely say that I can't say, you didn't see it stand up or anything.
Not that I saw, no.
Yeah, I can't say that it was a dogman, as people describe a dogman being on two legs.
Yeah.
They say they can go on all fours and stand up on two legs and vice versa. So I mean, it's definitely a possibility, but it's definitely something, like I said, that I've talked to other people who have said that they've seen the same thing. So there's something out there that's being seen by people that, in all descriptions, is a giant black wolf.
Oh, that's for sure. I honestly, if that thing had stood up on two legs, I probably would have had a heart attack as big as it was. I mean, I had a coworker that had two big Great Danes. Like one of them could stand just normally in front of me and barely tip his head back, and we were nose to nose. He was a big dog.
Yeah.
And this whatever I shot at dwarfed that Great Dane.
Yeah, one guy I talked to described it as, at first he thought he was looking at a black cow out in the field, but it wasn't moving like a cow. And then it kind of turned its body where he could see its silhouette better and realized that it was a canine.
Yeah, this thing was broadside to us. So there was never a question that it was a wolf. I mean, it was, as a hunter, this was like almost a picture perfect shot. He is coming from like my 3 o'clock towards my 9 o'clock. I've got the wind in my face where he's ranged. He's just toodalooing along this clear. I mean, it was perfect. I don't know. I don't know I don't know how I missed if I missed. I saw that shot in my sleep for weeks after that. Because I wanted a black wolf. I was going to get it mounted. I wanted that black wolf. The moment that we realized, like, holy cow, that was the biggest damn wolf we've ever seen. Because my buddy's a little bit taller than me. And when we walked up on that cut tree and realized how tall that thing was at the shoulders, we were like, holy crap.
So the shot is something that's what triggered me and triggered memories within myself. I had this friend, he passed away whenever we were young, but we were best friends in high school, spent a lot of time together, a lot of time talking. He was Native American, and his family had some land that they would go hunting on. They had a cabin there, and they'd go deer hunting every year. And on this property, which I have been to, it's a pretty crazy place, but they would see a large black cat. They described it as a panther.
Ooh.
Yeah. And I know he even had his brother talk to me about it one time. His father and his brother both had taken shots at this thing while deer hunting on the property. And I mean, both of these guys were crack shots, especially his dad had been hunting for years and years and years and years. And same reaction, absolutely swear up and down they hit it, had it dead to rights, and it didn't even flinch. It would just run off. Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened with this thing. And my buddy was like, did you hit it? And I was like, you've seen me make that shot. I made that shot. It was less than a week prior. It's the Saturday before we'd gone coyote hunting and we'd gotten 3 of them. And I made that almost exactly the same shot. And on a coyote, which is, the coyotes in Idaho aren't huge. They're 50, 60 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot smaller than this thing was. And I don't know. I don't know if I'll ever know.
For it to not even flinch or anything. I mean,
yeah.
Whenever you miss a shot, you usually know that you missed it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, I do. Once you've taken enough shots, you're like, I pulled that. I missed.
Yeah.
I was low. You can usually call where the shot goes if you spend enough time behind the scope. And man, I just don't know.
Maybe somebody will be listening that will be able to say, yeah, that happened to me too.
I would love it if somebody else from Idaho has had something like that happen.
I can say that I have heard mention that some of the natives up around Idaho do talk about a dogman creature.
Really?
Yeah.
If you hear anything in the future, I would love to hear it.
Yeah, for sure. I'll definitely put you in contact with some people.
I appreciate that.
So, but this wasn't your only strange encounter.
No, it was not. So the second one was in September of 2018. It was about 3.5-ish years later. Completely different area. This area that the second encounter happened in, I'm going to use the hunting zones for the areas. Like if you were to look at a fish and game map,
Okay.
you can look and be like, okay, it happened in these areas or these areas. So the first one happened in what's called the McCall zone. The second one happened in what's called the Weezer River zone. I was archery hunting. I'd gotten into it a couple years prior, and I had gone and scouted this area, and you kind of went up the mountain, and then I found this little pullout on Google Maps. I was looking one day at this mountain, and I was like, hey, I think I'm going to go check this spot out. So I had Onyx maps. I had offline maps ready to go. I had my little route tracker all set, and I went in just on a day trip. Left really early in the morning. It was about a 3-hour drive up there. So I left really early in the morning. I got up there a little after the sun was up. I walk in. It was about 1.5 miles, I think, to where I had picked as a glassing point. And the spot that I picked, I had the highest peak in the area kind of off to my left with a deep canyon, and then another point probably a 1/4 mile out in front of me in a straight line, 1/4 mile. So it was a pretty good ways off. And I sat there and I glassed, and I'd found elk. I had a good little trail. I was like, all right, if I can take some time and come back here, I should be set. Like, I should be able to find elk. Maybe I'll get a shot, maybe I won't, but I should be able to get on them if I come back here. So next week, I came back, and there was a couple of like dirt bike trails in the area, but I didn't hear anything. I was up there in the middle of the week intentionally, so that hopefully people wouldn't be ripping around on dirt bikes and pushing elk around.
Right.
So the second time I was in there, I did not see another living creature. I was like, what the heck is going on? I just saw elk in here. I just saw deer in here like 5 days ago, 6 days ago. And I spent all day hiking around, glassing. I did a couple of bugles, which admittedly weren't the greatest. I was never the greatest at elk calling. But it's like the middle or the last third of September. Like if you're bugling, the elk should respond, in theory, of course. And there was not a thing. There was not a chipmunk. There wasn't a bird. Nothing. Which at the time I'd like seen Finding Bigfoot and whatever.
Right.
But I didn't know a lot about it. I hadn't listened to podcasts. I hadn't listened to encounter stories. I didn't know anything. I thought they were just some big hairy creature that walked around in the woods and occasionally people saw them. It's getting towards dark, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to be up here for a couple of days. Like, it's not a big deal. I can, hike around a bunch again tomorrow and try to see if I can find where they're at. So I'm walking back I was sleeping in my vehicle And as I'm walking down this game trail, it kind of like side hills along the side of the mountain. And off the trail, this would have been to my left side, I realize I can hear something walking. And it's just a slow, steady kind of crunch. It's quiet, but it's there. And again, I don't know anything really about Bigfoot other than what I've seen on the TV shows. It is not even a thought in my mind at this point. I'm thinking this is either a bear or a cougar. Either way, I'm by myself, a mile from my car. I might be in trouble. I'm just kind of walking slowly and trying to look without looking off to my left to try to see this thing. And sounds like it's, I don't know, 20, 25 yards away, which should have been my first inclination that it's not a cougar, because if it's a cougar, you're very likely not going to hear it.
Yeah.
Again, I was a newer hunter. I really probably shouldn't have been out there by myself, but I was 22 and gung-ho and invincible and just ready to go.
Yeah, indestructible, man. What are you talking about?
Yeah. And I remember at one point I stopped and this thing stopped. I've heard the saying deathly quiet. That is the only thing I can think to describe it. There is not a word, not a sound, not a whisper, nothing. So I keep walking slowly, and this thing resumes walking with me. And I'm like, okay, this has to be a bear. So I did like a quick stop again, where I took like a short step, and this thing took one more step after I stopped. So I was like, oh crap, this has to be a bear, and I'm in deep crap. All at once, there is the most like explosive, forceful, just, and I felt it in my chest, like the bass at a concert. And it scared me so bad. So I spin to my left, and I'm bow hunting, and technically you're not supposed to have a firearm, but I always had a pistol with me just in case. You know, it's not going to do much against a bear, but it was a sense of security more than anything. It's just a 9mm. But I turn and draw my pistol because I'm like, I'm about to get charged by this thing. This is a bear, and it's about to come and mess me up. And I'm going to be stuck out here on the mountain for at least 2 days until my brother-in-law comes to find me.
Horrible situation, by the way.
Not fun. Not fun at all. So I turn, draw my pistol, and it is silent. And I'm like looking, I'm like stepping a little bit to each side, trying to figure out what in the hell is going on. And all of a sudden, it sounds like you loaded up an 18-wheeler and let it loose down the side of the mountain. Just branches breaking, crashing, thundering noises, which were the footsteps, I assume now. Just boom, 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 down the side of the mountain for, I don't know how far it ran. It ran a pretty good little distance. But just paving a trail, man. I've never heard anything like that.
What did you think at that point? I mean,
I did not have any idea. Dude, I was so scared. There's only one other time in the woods where I'd been anywhere near that scared, and that was a different story. But it ended up being that there was a mountain lion in the area. But never anything like that. It's the most scared I've ever been in my life, because I'm thinking, what on God's green earth was that? And again, I'm a relatively new hunter. I'm by myself. I'm 3 hours away. My brother-in-law knows that if I don't come back in 2 days to come and find me, he knows where I'm at. I set him a pin where I left my vehicle, so he at least knows where to come look, kind of. But I'm by myself. This really wasn't very smart.
And how far were you from your vehicle at that point?
About a mile. 3/4 of a mile to a mile.
That had to have been a really long walk.
Dude, I was shaking so bad. I was so scared. It's unreal. I did not put my pistol back in my holster the rest of the way to the vehicle. I put my bow on my backpack. I had a little hook that I made on my backpack that I could set the limb of my bow into it and it would carry it.
Mm-hmm.
And like it rattled and everything, but I could have my other hand free. And I have never walked a mile so fast in my life. I walked to my car and I went home. And I got back down to the valley where I live, and my girlfriend at the time, she thought I was going to be gone for like 3 more days. I think this was like a Wednesday or Thursday. I wasn't supposed to be back until Sunday. And I got back that night, and she was like, what happened? And I was like, I don't know, but I'm not going back up there. And I've not been back to that area since. I have only been hunting one other time since then.
Wow.
And that was 2 years ago. I still have all my stuff. I haven't sold everything, but I will not ever go back in that area again unless I have like 4 people with me. And only later on did I find out from listening to a podcast, I hear the guy talking about something paralleling him out and then a Bigfoot stepping into the trail in front of him. And I was like, oh my gosh, there is no way. Because he described it almost word for word what happened to me. Something walking alongside him, and then the huff, and then a different one stepped out in front of him. So I don't know if that was a little bit of luck that this thing at least seemed to be by itself, because I did never see anything.
Right.
But man, I am so glad I didn't see anything. For one, I think, again, I would have had a heart attack. For two, I was so scared, I think I would have just started pulling the trigger. I don't know what I would have done.
Have you been around bears in the wild?
Yeah, we had I grew up in a really small town. We had a bear that would come and raid our trash can. And my neighbor's trash can, who was a classmate of mine. We had bears. I'd seen coyotes. We had mountain lion tracks on Main Street.
Wow.
Fish and Game had to come dart a mountain lion and relocate it in town. I was not unfamiliar with them. I had never seen a mountain lion in the wild. I've actually only ever seen one in person, and it was crossing the road. But when it huffed, the first thing my mind went to was bear. But man, the lung power that thing had to have is nuts. It rattled my ribs. And again, it was just a big, powerful, just kind of, I don't even do it justice.
Like, bears make a lot of noise. It wouldn't have just been a single huff. You know, there probably should have been some jaw clacking and a lot more huffing and snorting and stuff. And they'll definitely parallel people in a situation whenever they're hunting or checking something out. But usually once they figure out it's a human, they just haul ass.
Yeah, usually black bears are kind of sissies.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, oh crap, human, run away.
And the whole, like, trying to match your steps. Bears don't do that.
I think that was what scared me the most, is I can't see this thing, but it is matching me almost perfectly step for step.
I mean, did it sound bipedal?
At the time, I wasn't thinking about that, but thinking back on it, yeah, it was 2 feet. It was walk, because I'm not in a hurry. Like, I'm walking along this trail listening, and every time my boot would come down on the trail, it would match me. It wasn't 2 matches for every one time my boot came down, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't step, 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 like you hear with something on 4 legs.
Right.
I think people who've been outdoors and have hunted kind of know what I mean by that, like that you'll hear from a deer kind of thing.
Right.
No, this was crunch, 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 and eerily matching me. It was scary.
Something from my own experiences, a way that I've described it, because this is how it seemed to me. If you're out walking in the woods, not hunting, mind you, just walking, humans make more noise than anything. Let's be clear about that.
Oh, absolutely.
We are extremely noisy. But like, if you've ever just been like walking out in the woods or whatever, You can hear your steps. Usually, you're swishing through the debris and everything, the leaf clutter or whatever. Animals, whenever they walk, they're quieter, but typically in a relaxed situation, they're just walking. You'll hear them walking. These things, their steps have purpose, very purposeful when they walk. They're not just shuffling their feet and just walking casually through the woods like an animal. It's like each step has an intent, and they're paying attention, like how they're stepping and how much noise they're making and everything else going on at the time. It's scary. It's very scary, very unnerving.
It felt like I was being stalked.
Yeah.
That's what it was. Because that's when humans get quiet, is when they're stalking.
Yeah.
That's when you're looking down to make sure you step on moss or a rock and not on a stick. Like it felt like I was being stalked with bad intentions. It just gives me the chills even now. Even sitting here thinking about it, my arm hair is standing straight up. It was, oh my gosh. I didn't tell anybody about that until I think it was either earlier this year or late last year. I hadn't told a soul. Because last year about this time is when I started listening to podcasts. And I'd always been kind of interested in it. Like Monster Quest was one of my favorite monster shows. I love Monster Quest. It was great. I loved hearing the stories and obviously they never find anything, but still it's fascinating to me. And I think I was listening to Wes Germer's show, Sasquatch Chronicles, and that was where I heard the story of the guy being paralleled. And I'm an Amazon delivery driver, and I stopped in the middle of somebody's path, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's what happened to me. That's what happened. Again, almost word for word. Being paralleled, a huff, and then a sighting. And I'm just glad I didn't have a sighting. I don't know if I want to see one of these things.
A buddy of mine came on the show and talked about being paralleled down in Texas and got freaked out. He was shook. He was shook by it, just being paralleled. And then another real good friend of mine got paralleled out in California, and he didn't see anything. But very similar description, even down to like the part where it just like crashes off into the woods and runs off.
That was the other thing that scared me, is how much noise it made going away. And I've spooked deer, I've spooked elk. They make a pretty good racket when they're moving, and a big elk is smacking his antlers off of trees as he's running away and not caring. They make a pretty good. There was nothing like what ran away from me, which I don't know why it ran away. But my pistol wouldn't have done anything. I don't know if it ran away because I drew my pistol. I don't know if it just decided, oh crap, this thing, like this little human knows I'm here now. Time to get out of Dodge. I don't know. But man, it got out of there, and it got out of there fast.
Well, I mean, you live to tell the tale.
Yeah, thankfully. Like I said, I haven't been back up there, but it's just bizarre. The whole behavior, the paralleling, I don't know if they're watching. I mean, hopefully someday we get the answers, but I don't know if that'll happen.
Here we are. I mean, like you said, this happened in 2018.
Yeah.
So many people out there would just take this story as like, okay, so the guy heard some noises in the woods. You don't talk about noises in the woods, years later, and it has this profound effect on you. It's almost like there's something inside of us that knows. There's something instinctual that picks up that, like, this wasn't normal. This was something else.
That's the best way I can think to describe it. And that's the best way. And it doesn't make sense unless you've gone through it. But that fear that I felt was something I've never felt in my life. And I really, honestly, I hope I never feel it again. Because I just, in my bones. I was like, this is not good. I am in deep shit, and I don't know how I'm going to get out of this. Like, there's nothing you can do. Just a couple of weeks ago, I was listening to your show, and somebody mentioned the BFRO reports, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go look this up. I'm gonna see about this. And the county that I grew up in, Valley County, has either the second or the third most Bigfoot sightings in my state, in Idaho.
Oh, wow.
And I think the most recent one was like 2013. So nothing recently reported. But I was like, wow, I had no, and they were areas not far from me. One was at a ski resort called Tamarack Resort, which is 25-minute drive from the house I grew up in. And then another one was at a spot called Warm Lake, which is a 30-minute drive from the house I grew up in. I had no idea until, like I said, 2 weeks ago when I went and looked. That was bizarre.
Which area of the state are you in?
Currently, I live in the Boise area, which is the capital city. I'm about 25 minutes from the capital city. But the area that I grew up in Valley County, was a little tiny town called Cascade. I grew up in a teeny tiny town. It's like 1,000 people if you get every redneck out of the hills for the census. But that's the area I grew up in.
Have you had any ghost or UFO experiences or anything like that?
I've never had any UFO experiences. Quite frankly, I'm not ever really looking though.
Right.
So I don't know, there might have been something. The only paranormal experience I've ever had, it was a one-time thing. I was in PE class and I went to go get the dodgeballs for the PE class with one of my classmates, and they had to go to the bathroom. So I just went to the old equipment room. It was in what we called the little gym, the old gym. And the locker room at that place, if it was dark, was creepy. It was scary. But I went down into that little spot, and it's dark, and I'm fumbling for the light switch, but I would swear somebody right behind my left shoulder went, "Hey." And I thought it was my classmate screwing with me, and I turn around and there's nothing there.
Oh, wow.
So that was trippy.
Well, man, I appreciate you coming on and talking to me, man.
No, I appreciate you having me. I like the way you do your shows, the way you kind of let people talk and hear them out and ask questions. And I just really appreciate you letting me come on and share my ramblings. So I greatly appreciate it.
I like to ramble, so it's good. It's good. I enjoyed it,
Thank you, Matt. I really do appreciate it.
Absolutely. And if you've had an encounter with something you can't explain, email me at bigfootcrossroads@gmail.com. Check out the website, bigfootcrossroads.com. You can find links to social media, past episodes, merchandise, everything you need all in one place. And until next time, remember, there's something in the woods.